Oh, the poor old little Stuart Turner R3 looked a little better yesterday than it does today. We've started to take the engine apart and finally discovered a few of the bits and pieces on the engine that have been done in the past, repairs and all sorts. First of all, we're going to look at the ignition system, which I've just rebuilt. Getting way ahead of myself because the engine is going to be nowhere near a point where it can run, not for a long time I wouldn't have thought. But anyway, we have just rebuilt the ignition. That's a Wyco coil from a Jap 2A. I got a spare one with a couple that I brought at the end of last year. And yeah, basically the whole ignition system is from a Jap 2A. Well, the Jap 2A is from the Stuart, should we say, because they're definitely not the same age. But anyway, so they share the same condenser, the same points back plate as well, the same coil, the same mountings as well. So if for every reason this was cracked, you could technically get away with running it with the Jap 2A's ignition backplate as well. Yeah. So we've gone into the ignition system and that should work now. There shouldn't be a problem with that at all. The engine's flywheel has decent magnetism, so that should be okay. We're basically going to drop the coil in that flywheel now to retain that magnetism and put it all to one side. Yeah, so then we've got a couple of our first homemade bits that we found on the engine, which I did know about, is this points cam, which looks like it's been probably turned on a lathe, machined a little bit, and seems to have been a nice job. All I've got to do is smooth off, it's hard to see on the camera, but I've got to smooth off this flat surface here where the points ride on, because if that's not flat and continues to have all of these grooves in it where it's being filed, it will wear the points cam very quickly, which it has done. So I've actually replaced this with one from a Jap 2A, the points arm, so the block isn't worn. But yeah, that looks okay. Flywheel key we'll probably get away with reusing, it's not chewed up too badly. Looks to be serviceable, although I have got plenty of them. Yeah, the old flywheel nut threads are a little weak, but the nut seems to do up nice and tight, so I'm not worried about that at all. The engine's definitely been completely apart and rebuilt at some time, because all of the gaskets have got this sort of like gasket sealer cement. There's actually no gaskets on the internals of the engine at all. It's all just this goopy stuff, which isn't much cop, but has kept it relatively watertight. So we've actually been able to remove all of the head studs. They're all in that bucket over there, all the bits and pieces that we've been taken off. So yeah, it's not looking too bad. The only things we've got are the things that we basically knew about, to be brutally honest. There is one other thing that we have found, but we'll delve into that in a minute. Our piston rings. You can see this is definitely the original piston, because it's got the early type design, with one single peg to keep the rings in place. On the later engines they were staggered, and I think the ring grooves might have been smaller as well. So this is definitely an early engine. But our ring gap, if we can press those rings, is huge. So that's probably what's leading the piston to slop around so much. I don't think there's much really amiss with the bore. The exhaust side of the piston looks to be in good shape. No real score marks at all. And yeah, the barrel doesn't look too bad either. The only problem we have got with the piston, which I think we're going to get away with, is right on the bottom of the skirt. It's cracked and has that whole chunk has been broken out. It's hard to see on the camera again, but you can just see some braze in there. The whole inside of the piston has been brazed up, so we'll have to look at that when we've got the piston off the guttering pin and see what that's like. But obviously then our most worrying is the connecting rod. Which is in bad way. The bearing is completely gone. There's probably about 10 thou movement there, 5-10 thou. That's going to rattle like a bugger in the engine, and it also then moves side to side, which isn't going to do the bore any favours. It's going to wear it completely uneven. So it's definitely got to have the bearing replaced. Fortunately enough, the actual crankshaft bearings are good. They're probably roller bearings. Yep, they are. And they're in perfectly fine shape, front and back, and centre bearing as well. I'm pretty sure it's got one there, then one at the back here, and one at the front as well. And that all looks really good. There is a little bit of water in the bottom of the engine. As we thought, it was leaking a little bit, but that looks to have just been a blown head gasket. Anyway, cut to a couple of the other things that have been done. This exhaust that's been made for it. It's a bit crude, but it has done its job. We probably won't be putting it back on this engine, but you can see it's been on there for a while, I would say. So I think the engine's done some running since it's been all apart and had some work done to it. The head has got the frost cack repair right there. Looks to be a clean weld. Obviously not the prettiest looking repair in the world, but I'm not going to touch it at all. I'm going to leave it exactly like that, and just hope that it continues to hold. Barrel on the carburetor came off without a fight, which was nice. And yeah, like I said, it's not the easiest thing to see in the world, but that exhaust side of that bore is nice and clean. So I'm just going to test the bottom of the bore for roundness, see if it's gone oval at all, and that will make our minds up whether it's going to need to be rebored or whether we're going to be alright with new rings. I should imagine it's just done a lot of hours. I don't think it's been starved of oil. There's no scoring on the piston. I think it is just a high hour engine, and it's just worn out through natural wear. Because there's nothing wrong with the bearings at all. It is just literally this connecting rod bushing that's gone, which I imagine is probably a bronze bush or something. I don't think it's roller pin bearings like in the other engines. I think it is just a plain bearing. But yeah, definitely intrigued by that piston repair. What must have happened to the poor old engine to warrant that? But I should imagine it's probably when it was apart, it's probably been dropped or something, or the barrel was, whilst putting the barrel back on, because it's right in line with it being right there, and that, if you forced it, would probably crack the piston. So I imagine that's probably what happened. But yeah, the rest of the engine looks fine. Nothing's put up a fight so far either. Everything's come off. Anyway, that'll do for part one. Continue tearing it down.